Hi to the greater community. Welcome back. We are on this journey to learn more about what God is doing, not just inside the four walls of Community Covenant, but out in the community and around the world. And today, super excited to have two members of our team, World Vision team, Becca Dawson and Nick Morocco. And love for you guys to just introduce yourselves.
I'm Becca, and this is my 4th year running with Team World Vision. I am, mom of 2 boys, hairstylist, owner of a salon, and that's pretty much my life. And now I run with Team World Vision. So
awesome. And Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Nick Morocco. I am the Team World Vision Area Director here in Kansas City. We were trying to figure out how long I've been on here, and actually it's 3 years because my first race is 2018, and then last year I ran in 2019, and this will be my 3rd year in 2020. So did not see myself in this role. When we moved to Kansas City, I was actually doing a different job. So we got, my wife and I got 3 kids, and so we are, fully engaged and involved in Team World Vision, which is not what we thought was going to be happening when we first moved from Denver to Kansas City, but it's been an awesome journey, and we're super excited to be on it.
So obviously I know you guys outside of the Zoom call, we're friends. And I know enough about the two of you to know that you did not come out of the womb as long distance runners. How did y'all get involved in this crazy World Vision stuff?
My brother-in-law ran in 2013 and 2015, the Twin Cities Marathon with World Vision. And so I just went and cheered him on. I had no idea what Team World Vision was until then. But it was so much fun cheering on the runners. And the runners are really inspiring, and you could just feel the emotion from them when they cross the finish line. And it's an incredible experience to witness. So in 2017, when our church was going to have a team, we went to the meeting to sign my husband up because he was clearly the better runner, which is my favorite part of the story. I went to sign him up, and I ended up signing up for the race that night. Once I found out that, we had the information placed in front of us and the knowledge of what to do to help solve this crisis, I just couldn't say no. Once I was given the ability and the information I needed to take it and run with it, I just decided to start running. So that's it.
What about you, Nick? How did you go from living in Kansas City and kind of working in a business-oriented job to doing what you're doing now?
I'll even take it back a little further. So, we lived in Denver for 10 years, and we decided, we wanted to move to Kansas City to be closer to family. I had a job where I was working from home, and the original plan was actually to get my real estate license and try to do, property management or get into real estate, because we thought that was a great way for us to, get some properties to invest in. So I had this grand plan of doing this whole other thing. And I remember getting a call one day from an old college buddy of mine, and he said, "Hey man, I think there's a perfect job for you, like helping out with with World Vision and doing their marathon races." And I immediately lost him at that word, because I knew what that meant was I had to run. And at the time, I probably couldn't even put together a mile. And I couldn't remember the last time I had even tried to run. So I told him, "No thanks, man. I'd love to support the cause. Let me know where to send a check. But that's not in the cards for me. Something else planned." So, a couple weeks later, I get a call from who ended up hiring me, but she just said, "Hey, I would love for you to consider this opportunity. Just pray about it and see if, God has something, he's calling you to do something here." And I immediately was like, "Man, how could," she said, "Pray about it. That's nice. Okay, I have to pray about it. I cannot just not pray about it." So I did. I said, "Okay, I'll pray about it." And just in praying about it and talking to, my own kids, asking more about what Team World Vision does, and me doing the research and finding out that what they do is really important. They are invested in bringing clean water to these communities that are desperate for that. Because we know that that is one of the leading causes of death on the planet, the lack of access to clean water, and just what they have to do to get to water and all these things. There's so many layers. We'll probably go into that a little more, but it just started dawning on me that I had an opportunity to be a part of something special, and that God was definitely calling me into this. And I was fighting it. I really, honestly, it's the last thing I really wanted to do. I know it sounds terrible, but I didn't want to do it. And part of me was afraid, because I couldn't run. Number two, just the idea of fundraising and, getting on stages and, all these things that I just didn't want to do. I mean, I worked from home. Like had a great gig. I mean, I always joke around sometimes about how I was able to, spend certain lunch breaks at the driving range. There wasn't all this crazy, traveling and stuff. But honestly, God just broke my heart. That's what really came down to. And it was an opportunity that I could not ignore. Obviously, don't regret it at all. It's been an amazing experience, but it was a hard sell at first. But once the light bulb came on, I realized that I was going to be part of something special, and it has been.
We're going to talk about in a little bit the why, because it takes a pretty big why to do these kind of things. But I know, Becca, you mentioned, you heard some information and you had, planned to set Brian down this pathway. You end up doing, what was it about what you heard that made you say, I have to do this?
Oh gosh, this is the part in my story where I usually tear up. So hopefully I'm going to try and hold it together. When our team was being launched and my ears perked up as I'm chasing around my two kids. And I heard that half of these kids were dying before age 5, and that every single one of those deaths was preventable. And I looked at my 2 boys, and statistically that would mean, because my oldest was 4. So statistically, I would be losing one of my children within that year. And that's what broke my heart. And once we were given the ability to help these moms provide, our bodies can't live without water. And so to be able to help these moms give their children this water and see them flourish and have a life. And I want to break that statistic. I want that statistic to be no longer. And I need these kids to live past age 5. So that's kind of where my whole focus has been, is that one statistic alone just really hit me hard that day. So.
And Nick, you talked about, God kind of broke your heart, but what was it about the work where you were like, okay, this isn't something I can just pray about and then not do it? You obviously, you felt convinced and convicted enough to say, okay, I got to do this thing that I don't necessarily really, my body's telling me I don't really want to do this, but something else is telling me I need to. What was that switch?
Oh yeah, my body was telling me no. My mind was saying no. The thought of Saturday mornings and the freedom that I have was saying no. All these things, but my heart, that's what was saying yes. I remember early on, before Alyssa's the lady who called, she was going to call, and I told Pam, I'm not going to take the call. Or at least I'll take the call, just tell her no. And obviously I didn't say no on that call, but that night I couldn't sleep. I just had this thing that just was churning inside of me. It was like this little, a little mini battle, my body, my mind, and my heart, right? And obviously that was the Holy Spirit, I believe, that was working, fighting inside for what God was calling me into. But like Becca, I have at the time it was 2 kids. And one was getting ready to turn 5. Emery was getting ready to turn 5, and I just was rewatching these videos, because kind of showing how these kids are walking on average 6 kilometers a day to gain access to water, and it's down hills, it's in the dark, it's they're put in vulnerable situations, and there's so many more things attributed to that. It's not just a water walk in the morning. There's a lot more that goes into that. Like just thinking about my wife, my kids having to do that, like it didn't compute, like it was like this thing. And I remember one time watching one of the videos, and Emery looked up and said, "Dad, what are they doing? Like, why are they doing this?" I was like, "Well, they need water. This is all they can do." And she's like, just that confusion in her eyes, and you could do it. And she's like, "Well, what can we do to help them?" And it was like something in that comment was like, usually someone is in that position, they don't have someone asking them to actually take on a job that they can actually do something, And so it was almost like God was using her to ask, what are you going to do? Are you going to step off the sidelines and do this thing that I'm calling you to? And that was just, that was a powerful, experience, but just a lot of other different parts that go into that story of just God slowly revealing to me why it was so important for me to do that work. And so that's probably the best way I could put it. And, I'm getting long-winded here, but I'll just jump over and say, I was actually born in Kenya. And so there was this like dynamic at play as well, like going back to Africa and doing work in that same continent that I was born in, where I know I had family relatives who still are impacted by poverty over there. And so there was just this dynamic at play as well, as far as my personal life and my experience, that also was drawing me into that work.
Yeah. Man. So you guys start out, and I'm going to go back to Becca. So you say yes, you sign up, but then you actually have to go out and like start running. Your first time and be like, what's that like?
Well, like Nick said, I don't think I could have pieced together a mile. I don't even know if I could have run down the block when I started. So base training, you start with a 2-minute run and a 1-minute walk, and you only have to do that for 20 minutes. And those 2 minutes were the longest 2 minutes of my life. They lasted forever. So base training was really hard, but I almost feel like, we talk a lot to our runners about just stepping through that fear of, oh my gosh, what did I just sign up for? To, okay, God, you brought me to this. I'm going to need you to get me through this. So it really, it just, I think our bodies are just able to do so much more than we even give them credit for. And I think the training schedule is so good. The encouragement of the team is so good. And it just ends up being a great success, especially we got God on our side, you got a great team on your side and a great cause. So I just really had to keep my focus on why I was even running. And I had those moms in the back of my mind, and I couldn't stop. So.
And I know, Nick, you have a story about the first time you ever showed up to a group run. Talk to me. You agreed, I think I'm going to do this. You show up to this church in Lenexa, Copperhead Church's lot on a Saturday morning, really early. Like, what's going through your head?
Well, like Becca, I remember my first run. I left out the back and went down the road, and I was like, they tell us not to do this, actually. So on your first run, don't try to go out and try to qualify yourself for this thing. Because if that's your goal, like, can I do this marathon, and you go out and try to run the fastest mile or do a mile, you'll quickly learn that that's not really how it works. Because halfway through that first run, I almost cried because I was like, because I had already accepted the job, okay? And I was committed to run this half marathon. And I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm tempted to call Pam to come pick me up, and I'm half a mile away. And basically, crawled back home. That's why there's a training plan. And that training plan is in place for that exact reason, because if you try to do that, it's going to work. So that was the condition I was in at the time. But the other dynamic is, as the T-Mobile Vision Area Director, it's your job to be at these runs and, you know, support and encourage and be a part of that. So I remember I missed the first group run, you know, and like my boss was like, "So what happened?" And it was just like, you know, I didn't realize that the time and like how important it was to be there. So the truth was, I was terrified. I was so scared. Okay. And I didn't want to go, because I was like, these people are going to be running. They're going to be faster than me. I'm going to be the guy who looks so silly.
You're not in the first group run at the beginning of the season. You're jumping in like fairly close to race day, right?
Yeah. I was about eight weeks out, maybe. But you know, but they had been in. Here's the thing: nobody knows. I'm going to reveal this. Like, they've been telling me before I was hired to go to these group runs. Like, just go check them out, see what they're like. And I was like, no way. Like, I'm terrified. But when I got the job, I was like, I guess I have to go to the group run. There's no, you can't say no to that. So after I got hired, that first Saturday, I show up at Call Prairie Church, and I'm sitting in the parking lot, and I'm debating, how do I get out of this? And again, it just dawned on me, bro, this is your job. You got to go down there. And so what I did is I went down, and I just kind of like hung back. I tried to, like, nobody knew exactly something, one or two people might have known. I don't even know if anybody knew, really. But I showed up and just try to sit back and, you know, not be noticed. But at group runs, if you're there, you're going to get loved on, and people are going to check in and see how you're doing and want to connect, because that's the biggest part of what we do, is the community aspect. And group runs like the biggest part of that. And so I remember people just introduce themselves, like letting you know it's cool. Like, we don't run fast. So I'm like, I'm walking, you know, like, as soon as I heard, I'm walking, I'm like, yes, I'm probably going to be doing something like that. Mm-hmm. But I remember being terrified because it was an 8-miler that day. And I'd been doing a little bit running on my own at that point, but it was so special because I met Becca that day. And Becca was so encouraging on that course. And obviously Becca and I have become great friends, and she's, like, you know, such a huge part of what we do now. But back then she was just a random person on the trail next to me. But this random person was this encouraging force. And I remember halfway, you know, listening, you know, my earbuds on the way back, the 4-mile point where you turn around, I was listening to some sort of praise and worship song, and I just started like weeping, because I couldn't imagine Nick Morocco just ran 4 miles, and he's about to run 4 more, and he feels like this is like something that he can do. Like, it became attainable, and it was just something that day that changed everything. That first group run, I was addicted to the group run. I don't think I mean, maybe when I'm on vacation once or twice in the summer, do I miss. So that's how I got indoctrinated into the world of running. That experience.
So Becca, that something Nick said, maybe something made me think about, you know, so going from where, you know, those 2 miles or the 2 minutes are the longest 2 minutes of your life. At what point that first year do you feel like you thought to yourself, I can actually do this? So I remember getting the training. For me, I remember getting the first year, you see all those weeks, all those miles. And it's interesting because every year we have new runners.
Yeah.
Same comment, it's like, okay, we're doing 35 minutes today, but I'm looking in like August, we're going to run like 7 miles, and you're going to run like 5 miles during the week and stuff like that. So, yeah, what was the point in that first season where you were like, you know what, I think I can actually do this?
I specifically remember one time I had to do a treadmill run, and in the beginning, you know, I couldn't even run a couple minutes at a time. And I remember one time on the treadmill, I made it 6 minutes without stopping. And I got off and I called my husband and I was like, I just did 6 minutes. And it was like this great haha moment. And then I'll never forget the 6 mile run. Because I thought back to the moment that I did 6 minutes and thought that I had achieved something so great, which at the time it was. And so I remember going 6 miles, and that one really stuck out to me and had me crying. I'm like, how in the world did I just go 6 miles? And it was just an incredible moment, like Nick said, of just feeling like, okay, I've got this, I can do this. And just one of my favorite things that we tell new runners is you will definitely put an only in front of numbers that scare you in the beginning. And I hear people do it all the time. Today they went 8 miles, and I think all my runners were like, oh, we only have 8 today. And 8 miles is one of those numbers, when you get in the schedule and you have 8, 9, 10 right in a row, it's terrifying. Like those 3 weeks, like you said, I remember looking at the schedule and just being terrified for 8, 9, 10. And then at the end of the season, we have people saying only in front of 8. And so it's just really incredible, really just what your body can shape up to do. And we just need to trust our bodies and trust the training plan and look what happens. So we start saying onlys.
Yeah. Well, it is even like when I think about the season, I mean, you start in June and you finish in October, and the weather in June is quite a bit different typically than it is in October. And so, you really do have to fight through tough, like July and August. I mean, there was quite a few Saturdays where we had 6 a.m. starts instead of 7 a.m. starts, because it's just like, man, if you wait till 7, it's going to just get too hot out there.
Don't tell people that. 6 a.m.
I mean, we never have brutal runs. Never at 6 a.m.
It's funny because, and I was going to ask, was Brian gracious to you? Because you said Brian's a runner, right, Becca? When you were talking about the 6 minutes, was he like super gracious? I just think for me, like the first time I kind of connected something about how running was something I could do was I'd been doing little chunks, and I went out the same route that I did the first day, but this time it was like 1.5 miles out, and when I came back, this was like 3 weeks in or something like that, 4 weeks in, I had run the whole thing. I ran all the way back to the house, and I was like, it was like the greatest thing ever. Like, I just ran 3 miles. And I was like, who do I call? Who do I tell? So I was like, if I tell runners, I'd be like, so what? But like, it might not seem like a big deal, but it really is for each person. And that's the whole point. A big part of what we do is wanting people to go through a transformational experience themselves. We could just ask for donations, which we do. So if you want to donate, please donate. We'll share our links. We have no problem asking for donations. But I think what we love to see is that, sure, donate, but let's have that person also go through their own transformational experience. Because like, there's no way you start, if you've never done anything like this before, go through 18 weeks of training and not go through some sort of transformation.
Yes.
I want to talk about that. That's a great point you bring up, Nick. I want to talk about that piece, because one of the things that I have noticed doing training, so full disclosure, whether you're listening on watching on YouTube, I am part of the Team World Vision team. I took the plunge a couple of years ago. This is season 3 for me as well. But one thing that is sometimes really discouraging is you can feel like you make a ton of progress, and then you have that one bad run, or you have that 1 or 2 bad weeks, or you get, a nagging injury or something like that, and it sets you back. How have you both seen kind of the ups and downs of training be formational for you? Like, how have you seen it grow your faith, grow yourself physically? Like, how have you seen kind of, because you keep, obviously, I mean, Nick, you work for World Vision, but Becca, you put in a lot of your volunteer time for this. You keep signing up to do this really hard thing every year. Obviously, there's been, beyond just the benefit to people, and we're going to talk more about that before we finish, but how have you seen this whole process of gearing up and pushing through? How has it been transformational?
I think my first year I learned that I can't do it alone. And I have the type of personality where I don't like to ask for help. I don't like to feel like a burden on somebody else. Yeah, I see your giggle. And so this one really, I couldn't do alone. I had to lean on other people. I had to lean on God. This was definitely not something that I could do alone. And I think I started off my first year trying to not, I didn't want to complain about something hurting. I didn't want to complain about anything. I wanted to build everybody else up and always be positive. But there were times that I needed help. I had my own issues and my own pains and struggles. And I did have to ask for help, which is not an easy task to do. So, I think I prayed a lot more than I ever have in my entire life. It just really opened up this whole other side of me that I think I had tried to kind of keep closed for so many years. It was, I just want to be there for everybody else. Nobody needs to really be here for me. I'm going to be here for you. But I couldn't hold that up. I needed people to help me too. So
can you talk about that? Because I wasn't around for the year one. Can you talk about that team? It was a smaller team, but
yeah.
What was the dynamic like that back in 2017, that first year?
Oh gosh. When you run with people, it's really, things get really personal. I feel like you're sweating, you're really emotional on a lot of the runs. For a lot of us, this was the longest run we had ever been on. And so each week it was like climbing this other little part of the mountain. And so it's really, to go through something like that together, it almost bonds you like family. And, the people that I met that first year are some of my closest friends now. And they're brothers and sisters. And it's just, I wish that everybody could have that same experience. Like, my goal when somebody joins this team is to try to give them that experience, because it just is really incredible. It's hard to put into words, I think.
So let's talk about the team dynamic a little bit. And because I think something that might surprise people is how many non-runners are on Team World Vision. Like, I would say it's almost the exception that you get somebody who said like, hey, I ran cross country in college, or I run 4 miles a day or 5 miles a day. Like, certainly we have those people. There's a lot more of people like the three of us on this call that are like, I really would probably not choose to do this. Well, people say like, you're a runner. I'm like, that's only because there's kids that don't have water. Like, if there's a way to do this thing, then we would, if there was a, we were joking at Shawnee Mission Park a couple weeks ago on our 10-mile run. Like, can there be like a Team World Vision float team where you can just like float down the river on some rafts and just like kick back? Is that a way to raise money? And obviously it's not. There's something about people taking on a challenge that encourages people to want to donate. And I remember, so my story of this is I remember I was not over Team World Vision year one. I was kind of like, came in to kind of support at the end. And then a person named Alyssa, who also ran Nick in, started emailing and calling me.
She's tricky.
What's that?
She's tricky, but she'll get you.
She'll get you.
Real good. So she kept on emailing, calling me, inviting me to things, and then she's like, "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" And I was like, "Sure." Our church did this, and I am in charge of missions. Yes, I'll talk to you. And I remember her sitting down with me and saying, you really need to run this thing. And I'm somebody who I ran the 200 meters. That's halfway around a track. That was my distance. And that was in high school. And I'm going to turn 43 here in a couple weeks. That was when I was 16. There's a lot, 43 minus 16. That's a lot of years in between, like, being physically fit. And I was, way more in shape, way thinner. And I was actually missed 2 years. And I had all the excuses. I said, Alyssa, I missed 2 years of high school track because of stress fractures of my ankles. If I couldn't do it at 16, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it at the time. I was 41. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it at 41. And she's like, but you know, if you do it, probably other people from your church will do it too. Leadership team kind of thing. And I kind of reluctantly, the Lord was like, yeah, dude, you do need to do this thing. But what I agree with what both of you said. There's something about being with the people, especially on the Saturday. So talk a little bit about, like, I mean, we've kind of talked about it being really encouraging, but what is it about those Saturday runs that, not just the Saturday runs, but like, I feel like the Saturday run is a snapshot of like the community that you're creating within Team World Vision. So what is it about that community that keeps people signing up for this craziness?
You know, interesting, you know, and just to hit on the earlier point you made about who says yes to this. I do a lot of pastor meetings, and they're always, a lot of times I'll hear, I mean, you're not going to get anybody. My people, they're not runners. You might get like 2 or 3, because I know there's 2 or 3 people who do a lot of the running. And usually I'm like, Pastor, you'll be surprised that morning, like the runners, that's an easy yes. Like we know they'll be down there. But you'll be shocked at who comes down and says yes to this thing. It's the last person you think, because it's more than just, you know, when we share about what World Vision and Team World Vision does, you already at the beginning know that this is not just about running, right? We have walkers, you know, we have people who have, you know, I always say all shapes, all sizes, all abilities are welcome, you know, and even like me personally, like I said, I was, you know, I've lost about 30 pounds since I started this thing. And so like when I first started, I was not in shape. I was not that kind of person who would be running. But the reason I got so like why so much of it made sense to me was I was new to Kansas City. I remember that. And all of a sudden I had instant community, like friends asking to hang out, like wanting to get together, like wanting to know my kids. I remember Community Covenant, Missy Wolf drops off a whole thing of baby stuff for my kids. Last year, brand new runners from Grace Community, they brought stuff for baby Joe when she was born. So it's not just about that group run. That is like the most exciting part each week, because you're going to get to see people and run. But that community is built out in so many ways. It goes beyond the trail. It goes beyond running. So like you have that component of, yeah, physically you're going to get in better shape. You're going to feel stronger. You're going to have more energy. But I don't think that's why we do it, you know, because let's be honest, we could have been working out and getting in shape before all of this, right? And the reason people keep coming back, in my opinion, is it encompasses so many different dynamics that we need, you know, especially this year. I mean, this year more than ever, the need for that community is so important and so needed. And I have friends who I'll be in community with for years to come. Even, you know, who knows how long I'm in this role. Beyond that, we're going to be in community. And to me, that's a priceless return on my investment, if you ask.
Yeah. What about for you, Becca? What is it about those Saturday group runs that really, like, it's so special?
Gosh. Well, I think you, Nick, really nailed a lot of what it feels like on Saturdays. I also was terrified to go to my first group run. I think I was like 10 weeks in, my first year before I showed up to one. And my first group run was so amazing that I was like, I cannot believe that I waited this long. I missed so many weeks of group runs because I was too scared to go. And that's probably my biggest regret from year one, was not getting to a group run that very first week. Because we're not all really great runners. Most of us, what is it, 80% are brand new to running every year. So we pile in a lot of brand new runners, people that have never done it. And so I just wish that I would have realized that group runs would be like that. They're very comfortable. We do have people of all abilities. And so I feel like there's really something for everyone. And that's really the beauty of it. And I love seeing all ages conversing. And it's funny because last year and this year I started doing my long runs on a different day so that I could just come set up and be a cheerleader. Like, I don't even run at group runs anymore, just because I have so much fun cheering on everybody and just getting to talk to everybody, checking on their weeks and see how their weeks are going and what we can be praying for. And it really is just an incredible overall experience. Just when people come together for the same cause, it makes this really awesome, beautiful thing happen. And it's just, to get to witness it week after week is just something that I'll cherish for forever. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we're getting ready for group run withdrawal after next week. Group runs are over after the race, and a lot of us feel like we're lost without the group.
Yeah.
There is a bit of withdrawal that happens after the race, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, that first Saturday we get to sleep in is amazing, but now what? We definitely go through a little sadness when the season's over, for sure.
Well, and I think too, just about, you talk about people with different abilities, there's cheering for everybody. And definitely, I mean, we definitely have had some athletes, I think about, Jason Sivrite, who's on our staff, who he joined the team won like 3 weeks before the race, one of the fastest times in the church.
Yeah.
So, you definitely have people who are very athletic, who like, they kind of effortlessly do these runs, or they do really well, and they get cheers as well. But I think the biggest cheers come from the people that we know, like, this is everything they got to be out here. Like, it's a huge deal for some of the folks who have, when I think back over the years, like, it's a huge deal for some of the folks to show up and to do this thing. I mean, and to not drop out, because when you do occasionally have people that sign up with every intention and they realize, like, this is really hard. And it's not just hard, it takes a lot of time, especially if you're doing full marathon training. I mean, I don't even know how the full marathoners find the time to get all of their training in, because you're usually doing it in the evenings. Or, I was talking to one of our full marathoners after the group run this morning, and she was saying, like, right now I basically get up early, I go to work, I come home, I eat dinner, and then I go out for a run. And then pretty much by the time I get home, I pack my lunch and I'm staying in bed. And so there is a sacrificial part of it. So those people who continually show up, who like, this is a fight. They are fighting against their bodies to put these miles in, and they may not be the fastest people, but I feel like that's when you get the biggest cheers, right? I mean, you see people get, and that's probably one of the more beautiful parts about that group culture of visions. You see everybody get celebrated, and really, like, the more you overcome, I think the more people do that.
Yeah, Pamoja, man. I mean, this year, that's our theme together. Like, my screen's here, but I probably need my camera here. Like our thing is, go further together. That's what we're saying. And there is something beautiful about watching somebody at the beginning of the year look at you and say, I don't know I don't think I can do this. There's something, there's no way I can do this. But it's not an accident that the longest run of the week is meant to be done together. Because that is where you probably need the most encouragement. But also watching someone go from, I don't know if I can do this, to crossing the finish line, and you were part of that journey with them, not just you, but you and other people, it's something powerful, like watching that person cross the finish line. And it's something empowering about someone just digging deep and saying, I'm doing this even though it's costing me, because I know that this is gonna serve somebody, across the world. And that why is what probably keeps this person when they get home. Like, if it was just running, I don't know, there's a handful of people who just run to run. I'm not one of them. Just full disclosure. But yeah, there's times where the alarm goes off and it's dark and I don't want to go run, but I think about, why am I running? Why am I doing this? And something just says, you can't, I can't say no. I have to get up, I have to do this. And I'm committed and I'm invested in this. So I don't know if that's similar for you, Becca, but definitely for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you talked about like a finish line moment and you get to see these people on their journey week after week. And it is fun to see them in the beginning of the season and then just see what they're capable of on race day. It's just incredible. And when you've done it before, you know, the amount of sacrifice that it takes. And so I think that's why it's so easy to keep them encouraged, is because they're working so hard and giving up so many hours of their time for something else. Like, this isn't even for them. It's just, I keep saying a lot, but it's really incredible to see the amount of people that will sacrifice their time and their bodies in this way just to provide for people on the other side of the world. It's really, really cool.
Well, and I remember my first year, every week the question would be asked, for how many of you is this your longest run? And you kind of put your hand up, like you kind of feel dumb at first until you realize there's a whole bunch of people that this is their first. And then you kind of feel like, okay, maybe I'm not so crazy. But what you said, Becca, made me think about a lot of times, so I'm a pastor, and in church leadership, a lot of times I think we have this assumption of like, we have to lower the bar and make things as easy as possible for people to sign up to do things. But as I'm listening to you both talk, it seems like it's really just about casting a compelling vision. It's really about casting a compelling why. And when people are convinced that it's worth it, they will do kind of amazing things. And so I want to spend kind of the remainder of our time, we've been kind of hinting at clean water, and I know this is like a passion for both of you, like, why is this such a big deal? Becca, how did you get from, being a runner who could barely run down the street in 2017 to being a captain who's doing, virtual fundraisers and is helping provide leadership to this movement? So, why is this cause so worth it for you guys?
Well, we already discussed my broken heart from before. I love that Team World Vision has bridged us with them and has taken this huge global crisis and given this little mom in Kansas the ability to do something about it. And I feel it makes me feel stronger. It makes me feel like I'm doing something huge in this world. And I feel like because it's given me so much joy and so much has come out of it, I think I just want so badly for other people to join in on that. Like, we are given the opportunity to end a global crisis. Like, that is a huge deal. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to even make a small little dent in it. And I can't wait to grow the team even more and just hear even more about these stories of transformation and what God is doing. The opportunity that's been put before us is really, really a great one. And, Alyssa, we've talked about Alyssa before, Alice Collin, she's good at what she does. She looked at me and she's like, we talk about burnout a lot. We want to make sure that our runners and our captains aren't getting burnt out, because it can be really discouraging. Volunteering is no easy task. But, she looked at me and she's like, how much time you got in you? And I was like, well, I mean, we're planning on ending this thing around 2030. So I'm in. I'm in for the next decade. Count me in. So my goal is to get as many people on board as we can and just follow this thing through to the end. And I can't imagine the day. And I like dream of the day when all of a sudden we're like, okay, guys, we did it. Like everybody has water. Everybody. Like I can't imagine the day that everybody can have a clean glass of water. It's beautiful.
Nick, can you speak a little bit like what kind of, we've talked about how it's so significant for people to have clean water, but can you talk a little bit about like what difference does it make to give people clean water? I mean, obviously, you know, we've talked about health and things, but I mean, it really is a game changer on many levels, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said, Beck. I mean, our goal is to work out of a job. I mean, that's, it's, I don't know any other way to say it. And that's become such a passion for me because being able to go to the field, and I went on a water walk with a young lady in Uganda a couple months ago, and I saw this journey she takes every day. And because she does that, that means that in the morning she's up and like misses most of school. Eventually, a lot of these kids just end up not going to school because they miss so much time, you know, trying to get water twice a day that they can't go to school. And so we say water is life because a lot of these kids, it's mainly young girls. Now, once they get that water in the community, once they have clean water, access to that, where it's like they don't have to spend all that time walking, they can go to school, right? And we know that, you know, with clean water means more sanitation opportunities and more opportunities for these people for these communities to be healthy and all the things that kind of play out of that. So water is important for us, but you have to understand, like, it is fundamental for these communities to have it because without it, everything else really is in flux. It's not, everything doesn't work the way it works, you know, for us in our daily life. People are missing school, people are not healthy, grandparents are having to take care of kids because the parents have died or kids are losing their lives. There's just so many dynamics to clean water that you probably don't even think about. And that's a big part of what World Vision does. It's not just providing clean water, because once we provide clean water, then we can now come in with healthcare, then we can come in with education, community building and training, and microfinancing loans, all these other things, farming, like it builds off of clean water. And it absolutely transforms an entire community.
And I love World Vision's process of community ownership of this. So, because I think, you know, having been in a lot of mission projects, there's been a lot of damage that's been done from agencies from the West going, you know, to different countries and dropping in and offering aid and then leaving, and then doesn't really solve the problem. It just kind of almost creates more problems. So can you talk a little bit too about just what's World Vision's process to make sure this is something the community owns and it's their project rather than just, you know, us coming in and dropping in some aid and then kind of back away.
Yeah, you know, something I learned really important early on, and I used to say it, but I don't anymore, was, you know, Rusty Funk, our national director, he used to say, well, he still says, you know, we don't say we are the voice for the voiceless, okay? And I know that term, like when you say it, when I said it, I was just, I want to help this community gain a voice. And the truth is, they have a voice. They have opinions. They have like strong women and leaders in the community. We just want to be there to empower that. So when we go and we invest in the community, we're not saying, what's going to do? We're going to do this, this, and that. We ask, you know, what can we do for you? How can we help you? How can we empower you? And we let them, their engineers kind of do the projects, and the community leaders are the ones that are responsible for maintaining that water well. We're just there to be, you know, support and to encourage them and be resources because they're able to do so many great things once they're empowered with that. Mm-hmm. So they have so much to offer, and it's just so cool to just be a part of that. And leaving a community with water, and you know, the goal is to, you know, leave them to be sustainable on their own, and they are, because they have great leadership that's already built in with them. They just need that empowerment, and that's where we come in with moving our feet and getting people to get activated on this.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but doesn't World Vision usually employ a few to, like, jobs are created and
Yeah, I mean,
like within those communities?
and I'm not going to throw out a statistic, but it's a high number. Percentage of people who are in these villages and these communities and ADPs, which are area development projects, they're all staffed mainly by locals. You know, we're there for support, but we have area directors who are from these areas and support staff that are working, like, you know, to invest in their own communities, because who's going to know best what their community needs? It's not going to be, you know, Nick in Kansas City, right? It's going to be Peter, who lives in Uganda, and that's his community. He's lived it his whole life. So why not have him be the area director and be the person who's going to be helping to, you know, empower everybody else in that area? So yeah, there's so many good things that come out of just being able to invest in these communities that they already have. We're just being a part of it is what we are.
Becca, you mentioned something earlier about, you know, this is something that I can do and make an impact. And I know as a missions pastor, so often that's the obstacle to, you know, being able to make a global impact is, well, I don't have vacation time to go get on an airplane. I don't have the money to go pay for a global mission trip. It's going to take a couple of weeks on top of my vacation time. So how do you feel like being a part of Team Real Vision has kind of broadened your perspective about what's happening in the world, what God's doing in the world? How is it, I mean, think about, again, put yourself back in shoes of Becca Dawson 2017 to how's your world just kind of even change, or what God's doing in the world?
I feel like it's definitely opened up my eyes to lots of good that's happening in the world. Like there's all of a sudden you start learning about so many other great organizations and so many people wanting to help. Like I feel like I hear all the time, like, I want to help, I don't know what to do, da 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 da. And there's really a lot of people with the desire to help, and there's a lot of people helping in so many different areas. And I'm not sure. That's a tough question.
Well, but I think, I guess I'm leading you a little bit, but I think about, I mean, a lot of things, conversations you're having with people that you probably weren't having a couple years ago. I mean, it feels like you're, you know, thinking about even your leadership development of somebody who probably would have never gotten on a stage with and helped, because you're launching churches now.
Yeah. I guess I've never, well, and you and I have talked about this, like being called a leader is not something I've ever, would ever have considered myself even getting into a role like that. Being in front of people is terrifying. So I think there's been a lot of growth that way. But I think when we talked about earlier, when you're given this opportunity to do something that doesn't require me having to be on a plane for 24 hours and be away from my family for 2 weeks, I can go stand on a stage and bring other people into this and bring the opportunity to as many other people as possible. And, I can only do this little pocket of fundraising. I only have this group of people at my disposal. But if I grow the team into this many people and they have a whole new crop of people at their disposal, it just grows and grows and grows, which we've seen over the last 15 years of Team World Vision. It's just blossomed. And so, it's just fun to be on this mission and know that we can make a difference.
Well, yeah. And again, as a missions pastor, it was already an obstacle to get people on airplanes to go do mission. Now, I mean, whenever people listen to this, we're recording in 2020 in the middle of a global pandemic. So for our church, that meant all of our global missions are grounded for this year. And it's looking like we're probably not going to be getting on any airplanes to go on any global missions in 2021 either. So the COVID did not stop Team World Vision this year. it's looked different, but can you both talk about kind of as we wrap up today, how, even with all the drawbacks, how have you seen God work through Team World Vision in this crazy 2020 pandemic filled year?
Oof. Well, I remember Nick and I talking about, like, as churches were closing, that was right in our big launch season. That's right when we have church after church after church lined up, and we went through launch training, and so we were trained up and ready, and we didn't do a single one. So I remember at that point being like, how in the world are we going to get anybody on this team, and how do we reach people? And I think the greatest part of that, it made us get out of the church. It made us get out of those four walls. It made us try something new. It made us try things in a different way that we've never tried before. And maybe next year when churches are open, we launch in churches and can do all these other things that we've now learned how to do. And I had a race in August. Nick and I did a relay race that was canceled. And the day that race was canceled, I remember I was mad. I was mad at everything that's going on with COVID. I was mad at God for taking that away from us. Like, it's hard when we're trying to do something so big and then it gets canceled and we had to find something else to do. And we ran that relay race here in Kansas. And I sat back after that weekend and felt really guilty for not trusting that God had something great for us. I had a lot of guilt because that weekend was amazing, and we never would have had it if the big race hadn't been canceled. We never would have done it in that way. And I felt so blessed to have that weekend and have it done in that way. And so my focus has been this year turning it into, okay, it looks different, but we get to do things differently because of it. And it could end up being still something so amazing, even if it's not what we had planned. But, a lot of changes have been okay this year. And our team we have a record-breaking year. Our Kansas City team per runner has raised more than past years per runner. So they're doing awesome.
So say that one more time, just so people can hear that. So even in a year where there's pandemic and everybody's working out, making asks, and I know that was at the beginning of the season, it was like, man, I don't want to ask anybody for money right now because people are losing their jobs and stuff like that. But what did you just say about what's happening this year in Kansas City?
Yeah, so I talked to Alyssa yesterday, Nick's boss, and she mentioned that we have, Kansas City is breaking records for our amount per runner. And of course I instantly was like, can I tell this to all of the runners? I think all of the runners need to know that we're still breaking records in the midst of a pandemic, and our team is small, but we are mighty. That's for sure. So,
well, and I would just say, kind of going back to, I'll speak directly to pastors on Nick and Becca's behalf, because I know sometimes it can be a hard sell, but I will say qualitatively, there is no other mission project that we have done in the church that has been this engaging at people and that has had this kind of an impact. I mean, when I tell people the amounts of money that Team World Vision has raised, they're like, that's for the whole city, right? I was like, no, that's just our church. And people, it blows their minds because they're so used to missions being like, well, let's just give the scraps off the table. But World Vision is not the scraps off the table. I mean, people are being bold with their asks. People are stepping out in faith. And I think general population, they recognize sacrifice. And there's a respect there of, man, I cannot believe you're willing to get up Saturday morning. I cannot believe you're willing to, so many times in July, I do social media posts. And people say, man, you really should run out. It's too hot. It's like, I got to keep going. My calendar says I'm supposed to run 5 miles today. I'm sorry. That's just, we got to do it. And I think people see that. They see that, wow, even if they don't fully understand the impact of clean water and why this is such a big deal, they understand that when God people get to work and God's working through his people in such a mighty way, it's inspiring. It's super inspiring. So
yeah, those kids, doesn't matter if it's hot, if it's raining, if it's dark, cold, they got to get up every day and do it. They don't get to negotiate on weather and, those circumstances. And so I love hearing you say that that's not like that. You don't equate that into your no. You might think about it, but you're committed to the process. And I think that's really cool.
Well, and I don't just say that I just think that's the team. I mean, that's the DNA that I've experienced as someone who has been able to be a part of Team World Vision in the last couple of years, is that you just have some very resilient folks who understand their why. I mean, I'm excited. We've got at least a couple brand new runners this year, and one who spoke to me in June being like, man, these distances are so long. And now was certainly running past me, on the course and doing really great. And yeah, they might say, I'm looking forward to kind of putting the running shoes away for a while after next week. But they didn't stop them, even though it was hard, even though, it meant lack of sleep, even though it meant kind of a crazy season. Or at the end of the day, they're doing this thing. So, well, I appreciate Becca. I appreciate you and Nick coming on today, taking the time to share your hearts about World Vision. For those of you listening, watching, this is available on Apple Podcasts. It's available on our Community Linux YouTube channel. We're hoping that it'll be available on Spotify as well, on their podcast as well. We do want to encourage you, spread the word. There's so much happening in the greater community. Nick and Becca are doing great work, and there are so many others that are doing great work, and you can get involved. And so kind of as we wrap up today, if someone wants to either donate, because I know, we've got some people that are right on the threshold of hitting their fundraising goals, or just even want to donate generally to the team, how do they do that? And if they want to learn more about jumping on this crazy train in 2021, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we have a great landing page, teamworldvision.org/Kansas City. Has everything you need to know. On there, you get my contact information if you want to know how you can get involved with your church, or if you're a pastor who wants to have us do this with your people. We'd love to do that. My contact info is on there, teamworldvision.org/Kansas City, and that you can donate there if you want. You can find a team that you want to support, and all the information you need is going to be found on teamworldvision.org/Kansas City. So to put into context, the way we try to encourage people to see their fundraising is every $50 you donate or bring in, that equals bringing clean water to one person. And so that's how we want people to look at it. We don't want to look at, like right now, KC has raised over $150,000 for clean water. And it's not that number. I think when you translate to how many lives is that impact, almost 3,000 lives are now forever impacted because of those donations. And that's how we like to look at it.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show this week. Keep tuning in. These debut live on YouTube on Wednesday at 8:00. So, and I'll also debut on Wednesdays on podcasts as well. But don't want to miss these weeks. Keep tuning in, subscribe, give us a review, tell us how we're doing, and be praying for us. Be praying for Becca and Nick. Be praying for a mighty group of Kansas City runners coming up to run a week from today. We're recording on a Saturday, but October 17th, when you finally see this, it'll be just a few days away. There's still time to donate. There's still time to support these guys, support this team. Some great life-changing work. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.